I'm going to very quickly start this video by saying I am not an attorney. I am not a lawyer. I am not a real estate attorney or lawyer at all. Anything that is said regarding the topic of LLCs or liability or asset protection, you should absolutely check with a legal professional. You should also check with your hopefully real estate investor friendly accountant on all of this information before you make a decision one way or the other. But from the perspective of a rental property investor, myself, I'm going to give you some information to consider if you're thinking about whether or not you should put your rental properties in an LLC. Personally, for me, I decided against the LLC route, and I'll explain why. So when I first started buying properties, much like everybody, I'm like, oh, I have to put them in an LLC for asset protection and all that kind of stuff. So my first stop was my accountant. I said, hey, obviously I should put these in an LLC. And they were like, yeah, they started putting some doubt in my head. So I was like, ooh, well, maybe I better research this more. So I'm just going to tell you some of the downsides of going the LLC route on your rental properties. Again, from the liability perspective, asset protection, you absolutely need to check with your real estate attorney. Double check everything. But here's what I found out and why I ultimately decided not to go the LLC route. All the logistics and technical stuff aside, in my opinion, with all of the real estate investors that I work with, which are a lot of new investors, if you're just starting out, honestly, the LLC is a little bit of putting the cart before the horse. You have so many other things you need to be learning. You can just as easily protect your property with an umbrella insurance policy. And there's so much that is kind of tied into the LLC situation that if you are spending most of your time learning that end of it or going that route, you're basically forgoing learning more of the basics that you should probably be learning. So in the beginning, it's just the cart before the horse. So now more on kind of the technical aspects of this. I, for example, live in California. The minute I set up an LLC, I immediately have an $800 fee per year. That can be a pretty gnarly chunk of my cash flow when we're talking about cash flowing rental properties that make a couple $100 a year. Half my cash flow is gone because of this LLC fee. And on that note, even if you don't reside in California or the property is not in California, if your address is in any way tied to California, you're stuck. I even tried to think about my investor partner who's not in California, and they were like, if your name is on the property in any way and you have a driver's license with a California address, even if you're not physically there, too bad. So number one is there can be a lot of fees associated with LLCs, which if you're getting the desired benefit from the LLC may or may not be worth it. But you want to consider that as you are immediately going to take on some level of fees with the LLC. It's going to vary between all the states. Second, here's a big one that people don't realize. And I actually have not just asked one or two people about this. I've asked pretty much every real estate person and anyone looking into an LLC, because I never want to take one person's word for things. But the general consensus seems to be, here's what happens if you create an LLC. If you have a mortgage on the property, like a federally backed mortgage, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, whatever, that you are still personally guaranteeing that loan. It can't be just a loan to the LLC like commercial financing could be. You are personally tied to that loan. Here's what that can cause. As far as that whole asset protection thing, yeah, LLCs are going to help a lot. But if your name is personally guaranteeing the loan, even if it's primarily the LLC's name, but you still have to personally guarantee it, suddenly there are loopholes to that so-called asset protection that everybody thinks that you have. This is something you want to check with your attorney about. And this is specific to the cases where you have federally backed loans. This is different than if you pay for a property all cash or just have private financing or whatever. But I highly encourage you to dig into that to find out how much of that asset protection is lost because your personal name is actually still tied to the property, which is a great segue into one of the other challenges with LLCs, financing. So you can go get a mortgage, which I highly recommend because interest rates are the lowest of all the loan possibilities. If you go get a mortgage in your personal name and you buy the house and then you do a quit claim deed to the LLC, That is a possibility. So far, I haven't really heard of anyone calling the loan, but it's possible. So you would want to talk to your lender, also hopefully an investor-friendly lender. Talk to your lender about the possibility of that happening. But if you form an LLC before you've bought the property, you can't get the same financing options on that property. So when I piece all of these things together, here's what I'm looking at. I can personally own these properties. I for sure absolutely get an umbrella insurance policy. And so far, I haven't found many ways that, or any ways actually, that an umbrella insurance policy doesn't give just as much asset protection as the LLC. Again, something to clarify with an attorney. But in my experience, I haven't found the big difference. Umbrella insurance policies are incredibly cheap, very cheap. For all of my properties, including my cars and everything, it's like 26 bucks a month. Hello, that's amazing. So if I personally own the properties, I just get an umbrella insurance policy for the liability. I don't have excessive fees all the time, and I can get a mortgage. I want the mortgage because it's the cheapest money out there, especially today in 2021. 2020 and 2021 have some like record low interest rates. I can't get that in commercial financing. So if I go the LLC route, my question is, and the question that I would pose to you to go find the answer to before you pull any LLC triggers is, what benefits specifically is making all of that expense and hassle worth it? If it's asset protection, which is most people's answer, make sure you understand exactly what level of asset protection we're talking about here. Because if you have a federally backed loan, a mortgage, rumor is it's not 100% asset protection. So you want to be very clear on that. If it's not 100% protection, what level of protection is it? And then the question is it worth it? And people just I get why the messages online are so much like pro LLC. Yes, you have to have an LLC, protect yourself. Yeah, 100%. That's all absolutely true. But ask the deeper questions, because depending on where you are in your investing career, it's not that you may never get LLCs, it may just be too soon and you may not need them at this point in time. So check with your accountant first, then check with an attorney, understanding that attorneys are always going to say LLCs, but ask them detailed questions about exactly what level of coverage that is. So again, I'm not an attorney, but that is what I found for my properties. That's the route I've chosen to go, which is not go the LLC route, and see what you find out. Leave some comments down below about your experiences, good or bad, whichever, about LLCs. Have you put your properties in LLC? Are you planning to? What information have you found out? Have you found the loopholes? Have you, tell me everything. Leave all your comments, because I'm not going to claim to be an LLC expert. And so hopefully the information I give just prompts people to go find out more, but it would also be helpful to hear from others who have explored all of this on their own. So leave that down below. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel, because I want to have all sorts of conversations like this, and I want to have them with you. I want to hear from you guys. So yeah, if this was helpful in any way, like the video, and hopefully I'll see you in the comments.